So how we will do it, I will cut my questions. I will just use your answers, and you will be a voiceover translated onto Ukrainian.
Okay.
Yeah. So firstly, thank you so very much. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. And, right now, when yesterday President Zelensky made this statement that we have to move from the consultations between the experts to the meeting on the level of the leaders, it's enormous interest in Ukraine to Turkey to possible negotiations. We don't know the details yet, but my aim, my goal is to just to understand your vision and to understand your how do you see those possible talks? And firstly, I'd like to ask you, how do you see the Turkey role? So we got meetings in Istanbul already on the expert level. Do you see and do you think that Turkey sees its place as just a host country, which provides, the place, but nothing more, or a moderator, or a mediator, or you think that on some step, on some point, Turkey may be an active participant?
Let me start with first the logic of crisis management and mediation. Which countries deserve to be mediators or to host, to moderate? I think these are different stages, but I would prefer Turkey, not just a host, not just a moderator, but Turkey should be mediator, step by step. Turkey can start as moderator, but should continue as a mediator, maybe active participant. Why? In this type of high-level crisis, usually the best mediators are those who are benefiting out of peace, not out of crisis. So Turkey is maybe the unique country, the only country which will benefit most if there is a stability in Black Sea and there is a peace between Ukraine and Russia as two neighbors of Turkey and as two destinations of Turkish exports and imports, as well as touristic exchange of population. So if you compare with other countries, no other country has such a position. If I was in office in Turkey today, I would prefer to make first the analysis of the crisis, then how to make a ceasefire possible, but what is the ideal, the ultimate objective as a third party. Turkey's ultimate objective should be stability in Black Sea and a peace between all the Black Sea countries. Why Turkey need to be mediator? In this type of cases, regional ownership is very important. And in this case, there are, I see, 4 levels of crisis. One is national. Inside Ukraine, there has been a division and that should be resolved. National reconciliation is needed. There's a bilateral country-to-country crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Third level, regional dimension. And fourth is global dimension because there is a NATO-Russia conflict, possibility of conflict as well. So Turkey in all these phases can contribute much. So therefore, I would prefer Turkey not just a host or a moderator, but trying to reach both sides and understand the psychology, the objectives, the strategic gains of both sides, then trying to find out a common ground for a common interest for the stability of the region. So I would prefer Turkey be mediator. If you, in other questions, I can answer more in that.
Absolutely, thank you. Secondly, I'd like to discuss with you why every party, including Ukraine, including Russia, including United States, has chosen the Turkey as a place for the negotiations. Because you remember, as everything started in Riyadh, everything started in Saudi Arabia. I spoke with Italians, and they were excited about the idea, to choose the Vatican as a place. I spoke with French politicians. I interviewed a former prime minister, and he told me, okay, we're dreaming about having Switzerland as a place. But right now, every country, including Moscow, including Kiev, even including Washington, is agreed for Turkey. Speaking, not to politicians, but to ordinary people, people from the street, to my viewers. Can you explain why everyone was okay with Turkey, both Istanbul or Ankara, but why the country was suitable for everyone?
Yes, I think this is the right choice, and I think this is a result of Turkish foreign policy in Cold War era in general, and in last 20 years, even when I was in the office as well, we always preferred stability around us. I declared zero problems with our neighbors. And Ukraine and Russia are both our neighbors. And Istanbul is a symbolic place for both Ukraine and Russia, because at the end of the day, Istanbul Strait Bosphorus is their access to the world through sea. And Turkish active neutrality until now, I think that was right policy. I support this policy, active neutrality between two sides, and continuing to have connections as well as consultations with both sides. That gives a unique position for Turkey. We had this before in 2008 when when there was a crisis between Russia and Georgia. I remember at that time I was chief advisor. Many people around the world just were watching what will be happening, what would be happening in Georgia. Saakashvili was the Georgian president, and Russian president was Medvedev, and also at that time Putin was prime minister because of the constitutional situation. Anyway, same day, after 1 or 2 days, uh, I prepared a strategic paper, how we should approach this crisis. And we flew with Prime Minister Erdogan then direct to Moscow. And next day we went to Tbilisi. No other country or leader had such a chance. Sarkozy afterwards, as the president of EU at that time, President Sarkozy made the same visits, but it was not like Turkish position, because we sincerely supported territorial integrity of Georgia throughout the decades after the Cold War. But also we had good contacts with Russia. Today, Turkey sincerely supports territorial integrity of Ukraine, and we want the best relation between Russia and Ukraine, and Turkey will be benefiting out of this. What we did in 2008, trying to understand both sides, and without wasting any time, we prepared, in the plane, I submitted to Prime Minister a new Caucasian Pact of Peace, Caucasian Pact of Peace. And with all the Azerbaijan, Armenia, Iran, with all the concerned parties. Now, similarly, there should be a strategic plan for the future of bilateral relations, of course, for the future of territorially integrated Ukraine, but there should be certain steps to be taken inside Ukraine. Everybody sees these. And also, Turkey, as a member of NATO, is the only member of NATO having borders with Russia and Ukraine at the same time. Border means sea border, but at the end of the day, we are. And in that sense, there is no better place than Istanbul to have such a talk. And there is no better country than Turkey to be mediator in these talks. Active neutrality until now was good, but I suggest to our government, to Turkish government, from active neutrality to be active mediator. Not just trying to ease the tension, but we have to prepare something after consulting with both sides, something which could be acceptable with both sides. And therefore, with that example in 2008, now it is time for Turkey to take initiatives. And I strongly suggest our government in Ankara to start such a process. And I, of course, after getting endorsement from both Russia and Ukraine to make active participation in negotiations, not just host. Being host is prestigious. You will be seeing, okay, Istanbul is the place where people meet. Yes, this is true. But at the end of the day, what will be the next? I was the mediator between P5+1 and Iran, and almost all meetings we hosted in Istanbul in 2010. But what was the ultimate objective? In 2010, we signed an agreement with Iran. So being host is important and prestigious. But being moderator is also good because both sides trust Turkey. But at the end of the day, Turkish interest lies in an urgent peace and stability in Black Sea. This is our region, and we have to find our solutions together. Turkey, Ukraine, Russia, all together. We have to prepare a new strategic vision for our common, our region, Black Sea. And then Turkey should propose this to NATO because, as I said, there are several levels. And for example, on national integration level, yesterday, the day before, yes, I listened to President Putin's statement asking for more technical talks, but also referring to Orthodox Russian culture, Russian language, the rights of Orthodox. These for national integration, national reconciliation, based on territorial integrity of Ukraine, Turkey can make some contribution if both sides agree, because we have special relations, with Crimea, with different parts of Ukraine. And this is the second level, bilateral between Russia and Ukraine. There also Turkey can contribute a lot, having good relations with both sides. And third level, regional. Regional means two sides. One is Black Sea, the other is East Europe and European relation with EU. There also Turkey is the most preferable country because of our close relation with Sweden, Finland, who became member of NATO after this new geopolitics because of Ukraine-Russia war. So Turkey is the right place, but for this, Turkey needs to prepare a new strategic vision through consulting with all sides.
Let me ask you to clarify your position. I totally agree that we have to find the common ground because, any negotiations, any peace talks, it's just the two-way street. So we have to hear everyone. But at the same time, the biggest problem for Ukraine, and I spoke on the record and off the record with a lot of Ukrainian politicians, and it's very sensitive for Ukrainians themselves, the question of the territorial integrity. It was your position, and I thank you so very much when in 2014 Crimea was seized, and you was the person who told on behalf of the Turkey that you support the territorial integrity of the country. But when Russia wants, you told me you followed that Putin speech, and in that speech he told that he wants the territories which they kept already to be the part of Russia. So how to find the common solution and the common ground if the positions are too far from each other? Or I'll give you, if I may, another example. Ukraine was very strict about ceasefire first and negotiations later. And I know that it was Turkey position that when the cannons, are actively bombing, can we speak about the negotiations? Right now, we got the military activity on the front line. Unfortunately, we got the people dying on the front line, and at the same time, we are in the middle of the peace process. So, taking all these arguments, and that's a lot, I know. How to find the common solution if the positions of Kiev and Moscow are too far from each other?
Yes, I didn't say, and I don't say that this is an easy problem to be solved. No, it is very tough. There are historical background references, etc., cultural. There are many dimensions. But at the end of the day, the crisis damages both sides. not only one side. Maybe there were some expectations that Russia would invade Ukraine, Kiev, in a few weeks. This did not happen. So this crisis is damaging for both sides. Usually in this type of crisis, when it reached to the minimum interest in clash, but maximum interest for peace, there's a chance for peace. I think now everybody learned a lesson. Russia realized that they cannot invade all Ukraine. Before, that was the historic, if you look at some speeches of President Putin, historically he claimed that Kiev was the first nucleus of Russian Empire. But now, after almost 3 years, now this is not any option anymore. But he now thinks that certain parts of Ukraine should have a special status, or his ultimate goal might be annexation. It might be his intention, but at the end of the day, this is not also a very viable option at this moment. But also Ukraine realized, and EU and US, this prolonging crisis is creating new risks, geopolitical risks, security risks. So we are approaching to a timing that through a peace, everybody can at least minimize the damage, control the damage. There we can achieve a ceasefire. Ceasefire does not mean peace. At least everybody can take a breath and to start to think rationally. When fires are continuing during a war, both sides, I don't mean Ukraine and Russia only, but in all war, both sides make propaganda to their own people that they are winning the war. But those who are in charge, they know the existing reality more than anybody else. What is Turkey's position? For example, if I had such a chance to, first I would talk with both sides. What will you be gaining out of this crisis? You are losing something, but you may not gain much. So what is your ultimate optimum solution, at least to stop this damage? Then you can start step by step a confidence building measure, etc. In that sense, people usually, I know, first ceasefire, then talks, or first talks, then ceasefire. If after so many experiences in the past, in Lebanese crisis, presidential crisis in 2007, in Iraq, peace talks between Syria and Israel, I mediated between Bosnia and Serbia and resolved all the main issues, except there are many other cases. What I learned is the most important phase of any mediation is pre-negotiation phase. I declare pre-negotiation phase. That should be confidential. That should be discreet. A third party should understand the psychology of both sides, then should develop some sort of formula and share with both sides and trying to make step by step going through. Here, yes, Russia has ambitions. Okay, Ukraine has certain, objectives. I say objectives because it is right for Ukraine to defend territorial integrity. When I was minister, if you rightly you said, I was trying to explain on American sides that annexation of Crimea is not an ordinary case. It will start a much bigger war. I remember one American high official with whom I was working. He said, "Why, Ahmed, are you so referring to Crimea? It is a small peninsula." I said, "Yes, but because of that small peninsula, one of the biggest war occurred in 19th century, Crimean War. So it, there were several mistakes, not only by Russia or Ukraine, by third parties made miscalculations. Now it is time for a rational side. This could be Turkey or if any other, to make not to tell both sides, do not miscalculate the situation. You will not win this war. Come to the table and find a common ground and common interest. Then the Russia is being damaged by sanctions. I am sure no Russian leader want to continue sanctions. And there are also other losers of Russia. The image wars sometimes may contribute to the image of a country, but sometimes may discredit the image of the country. So I think time is approaching for a successful negotiation if there is a new strategic vision being accepted by both sides, rather than just tactical steps of these. And presidential level meeting between, as Trump suggested, President Trump, Zelensky, Putin, Trump, or others. A presidential meeting is important as a picture, as a meeting itself, to declare political will. But if it is not, if that presidential level summit will not produce anything, that will create more problems. Therefore, at the beginning, there should be a very clear political will for both sides, declaring that they are sincere and they have will, and they have authorized the delegations for a ceasefire. I am following the meetings here in Istanbul. I didn't see that political will there, to be frank. So on one side, Umerov and Ukraine sent ministerial level. On the Russian side, there was even the protocol-wise, it was not very promising. So that presidential meeting should declare a political will and give mandate to delegations. Then technical discussions should continue, but there should be always a third party reliable for both sides, if they agree, to bring some new position papers, some new positions, how we could overcome this crisis.
Oh, but do you believe they can speak about peace, or do you believe they may speak just about the ceasefire? So if the meeting on the leaders level will happen, do you believe the peace is not even achievable, but even discussable, or the main point might be the ceasefire, and after that we should return to the technical level, to the expert level, to find the next steps?
You know, in one of my articles published in late 1990s, before I became chief advisor, in my book, I said, ceasefires after the end of Cold War, they are all frozen conflicts. Ceasefire does not mean peace. Unfortunately, after the end of Cold War, almost all what we call peace, they are frozen conflicts and ceasefire. For example, issue of Abkhazia in Georgia, or even in Bosnia-Herzegovina. In many places, there is a ceasefire, yes. But if ceasefire brings a frozen conflict which blow up anytime, that may produce even much bigger wars, Transnistria issue and many others. So ceasefire is a necessity, but it is not enough. For a long-term stability, there is a vision of peace. Here, ceasefire conditions could be established. Then, based on that, there should be a new permanent peace, let me say. In the Palestinian case, you can see Oslo process, they had an objective for a permanent peace as two-state solution, but from ceasefire, it didn't go to the next stage, and several wars occurred afterwards. So, and the problem here, Ukraine-Russia crisis, it is not just bilateral. It became a global issue now. And the Cold War logic is coming back. Instead of, for example, in 2014, 2013, when the question started, there was NATO-Russia Council, 2012. So we were talking with Sergei Lavrov was coming to NATO ministerial meeting, summit, and talking. Unfortunately, we don't have such a mechanism. We had Ukraine NATO Council. Now, why this war is more riskier than Georgia? Because Georgian-Russian crisis, we were able to stop at early stages. But now this Russia-Ukraine crisis has escalated to a global level. Therefore, President Putin, President Trump's position is important. Any position of any American president is important. But President Putin, in order to have an influence, he should be consistent and predictable. His rhetoric is changing, to be frank. One day he's accusing Ukraine, another day he's accusing Russia, a third day he's trying to find a middle way. This is not good for a global power leader. There should be some sort of respect of all leaders that, yes, he's consistent. We can produce, because peace means at the end of the day, consistency, sustainability. So therefore, I was very scared, and I am very concerned. Anytime this Ukraine-Russia crisis may escalate to NATO-Russia crisis, which may create a third war. To prevent this, there should be a direct link, connection, communication between leaders, between all the leaders. I don't mean only Trump and Zelensky or Putin, Erdogan, Zelensky, Erdogan, Putin, Trump, Macron, because it is a UN Security Council issue as well. So there should be this high-level leader communication is important to create a climate, a positive climate for peace. But it is not enough to achieve a peace. The technical details should be discussed in a much more comprehensive manner.
Thank you so very much. I got the very last question, mostly for my viewers, people who don't, too advanced in politics or in diplomacy, but they're interested, firstly, about the formula on which the leaders might meet. We don't know it will happen. We believe it will happen. What we saw in Riyadh, that American delegation, when it was on the level of the Secretary of State, they met with Russians separately, with Ukrainians separately. And the idea was that maybe it will be the trilateral, but it doesn't happen at that time. Technically, with all your huge experience with all the negotiations and all the talks, do you think it might be the same in Turkey, that, for example, President Trump or President Erdogan will meet with Putin separately, with Zelensky separately, and if they will find the common ground, maybe they will meet trilateral or four of them? Do you see that formula might work?
Yes, that is possible, with one condition. Pre-negotiation, therefore, I said, pre-negotiation phase should be conducted in an appropriate manner. Before the leaders' summit, if Turkish side, assume that we are mediator, is well prepared, and if there is such a plan, I would send a real expert, foreign minister or somebody who knows this situation very well, to Kiev and Moscow, to get all the opinions of both sides, and President Erdogan should be briefed.
Dmitry, he is down, I think, but waiting, please.
Absolutely, I'm here. I'm waiting for the Prime Minister. It was actually the last question. I'm waiting for Mr. Davutoglu.
Yeah.
I'm here.
But your interview very, very favorite now.
Thank you.
Okay, I try to call to him.
Absolutely, take your time. Appreciate it very much. I'm here. Take your time. I'm here, and we will continue.
Dmitry,
Yeah,
sorry, internet connection problem.
that's okay, sir. I'm with you. Take your time. We were not live. We're amazing. So let me start with this question. So how do you see the formula? Everyone is interested how it may be organized. Do you believe that, Zelensky and Putin may sit opposite to each other? Or as we started with my question, and I believe so, maybe Trump or Erdogan meet with one of them, another of them, and maybe after that it should be the next step, sitting together.
Yes, this is one of the best formula, I think. Therefore I was giving the example. In 2008 we were conducting indirect talks between Syria and Israel. We were very close to a peace, everybody knows. But the talks were in Istanbul, we conducted in two different hotels, confidential way. And I and my team as mediators, the hotels were around 200, 300 meters away from each other. We were making shuttle diplomacy between two hotels. Nobody knew. And we prepared a common declaration in 2 days that the peace talks has started. So this is one of the best options. They are close. We can, in 1 hour, we were going to the other side, preparing, getting their view and bringing this to the other side. Similarly, if, let's say, Turkish president hosted both leaders into very good, nice hotel, and then the teams were conducting without giving any details to the press, even without giving the picture. Important is the result. Prepared a common ground, then the presidential level, this common ground could be delivered to Putin and Zelensky separately, and trying to achieve 1 or 2 round talks. Then if there is a chance to have a solution, to have at least a common ground, not solution, then trilateral press or trilateral meeting could be conducted. This is one of the options I would suggest. I did the same thing between Serbian President Tadic and Bosnia-Herzegovinian President at that time. Let me just between Bosnian President and Serbian President. I made a shuttle diplomacy. In one night, I went to Serbia. Stayed there until midnight. I took the paper, which I submitted to President Tadic. I came to Sarajevo, and I submitted this paper to the Bosnian president. And then I went back to Serbia, and next day we agreed on a plan, on a roadmap, let me say, and a text for roadmap. These are all good, options. We can work on that. But at the end of the day, the decisions will be taken by two leaders, Zelensky and Putin. If they are ready to make some sort of compromise to each other, a third party can take some steps forward.
Sir, thank you so very much. Let me stop.
Yeah, no. Just one.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know how Ukrainian issue is important for me personally. Let me give you an example, an information. When I became chief advisor, I declared, and in my book as well, as a multidimensional foreign policy for Turkey. Global level, Turkey, EU, US, Russia, China. We have to have balanced relations. Then I specified 5-6 countries as the strategically pivotal country for Turkish foreign policy. Not big power, middle powers, but developing good relations with them would open Turkey new strategic visions. These countries were Ukraine, Brazil, South Africa, South Korea, to have access to the regional phases. So Ukraine, for me, is one of the most important strategic player and country, and the territorial integrity, living in peace, territorially integrated and living in peace with neighbors, Russia and others. Ukraine can play a very significant role for the regional stability. And Turkish-Ukrainian relation is one of the most strategic relations for us in Euro-Asian dynamics.
Thank you so very much.